This is episode 35 of season 1 of the Launch Your Biz Now podcast, the podcast for all new and aspiring business owners. And on today's episode, I have one of my very good friends, Patrick McCarron. So thank you for joining us on the show today, Pat.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Happy to be here.
It is so exciting, and I've been wanting to have you on for so long, and this came at a perfect time because last guest interview we had Tracy from TM Solicitors, and in that interview we just started unraveling what is partnership agreements and shareholder agreements and how they work and why you should have it in place, and you were the perfect person to get on next because you are a financial planner. You help people with their shareholder and partnership agreements. You help business owners with cover and making sure that they're protected. And you help people plan for the future. And you're a business owner that has a partnership agreement or shareholder agreement. So, who better to get on to talk about all this stuff? So, Pat, before we get started, do you want to give us your elevator pitch? What do you do?
So, my elevator pitch, I help people when I reflect that. So to expand on that is identify what's important to people and what they want to get out of life and how to live the life they want. Once we get an understanding of that, we then look at the strategies, getting an idea of where they are currently, and then what strategies are involved in order to get them to where they want, in the time frame they want, what they need to do, what they need to consider, what they may need to sacrifice, and how much risk they're prepared to take.
Yeah, I love it. So it's about that transformation. All right. Where do you want to be in life? How are we going to do it? And how does that all look? And as you know, I think financial planners are so amazing and such an important job. And it's so valuable for somebody to sit and spend some time looking at their future and where they're going to be that personally or in business. And today, of course, we're talking about the business side of things. And I think it would be great if we could start with your experience in business because you are in a partnership. You've had plenty of experience with all the stuff that we are going to talk about today. So I think the best way to sort of go into this is just really hearing your story because this is going to help people understand why this stuff's important, why, your solicitor, your accountant, your financial planner might be, on your back about doing these things because you've experienced what happens if things do go wrong in business. So, yeah, where do we start, Pat? What do you reckon?
So if you look at, I've been a financial advisor since 2007, so just through a financial crisis. So
great timing.
Right back to the fire. What's the rolling door of staff walking out as the crisis unfolded, essentially. But about 10 years ago, I joined a practice, which at the time had two business plans. So they were a practice of for advisors and 5 support staff. Two of the advisors were the shareholder or the business partner. One owned 75% of the business and the other had 25%. So I joined the practice because I knew it was a great practice in terms of my dealing with them in the past and the outcomes that they could deliver for the client. That is very important to me. So I initially joined back in June 2012. And initially what I was told was what we want to do is in about 5 years, we look to fund you into the business. So you could become an equity holder and ensure what happened is that the business partners at the time were very, very, very pleased with how I was going and this. And there was another employee at the time who had been with business for a while. So they initially offered us an equity again, and then a year later, in 2015, I was offered to buy 10% of the business. Now, this is when my sort of first dealings with what shareholder agreements and partnership agreements and buy-sell insurances were. So obviously when buying into a business, you have a 75 to 25% owner, essentially there's an agreement in place. And the shareholder agreement pretty much said, this is how we as shareholders do business together. So what agreements do we have in place? So almost like a marriage prenup. It's
And
about
God, I wish we could do these sorts of things before we get into marriage, because I think that, as both of us have seen, this would save a lot of issues. And just a quick point on that as well. So you said the 75-25 split, but it's not just if you're going 75-25, is it? Like, it's any split that you have in a partnership. So anyone that's in a partnership.
so at the moment, there's 4 shareholders in our business, with shareholdings between 30 and 15%.
Yeah. So really, as soon as you go into business with someone, you need to have this in place. And it's not just, one of those things, it's to protect you. So we'll just make sure we get that clear.
Excellent. So what happens is, this is when here's the agreement, and what I should also note is that the agreement isn't just here's the Bible, this is whatever the fact that in subsequent years as things evolved and yeah, we as a business partners worked on made amendments with our solicitor just to sort of set the future needs of the business and what we were about it.
And see, I think that's a really good point too, because, all this stuff is negotiable. So if you're looking to buy into a business, know that you have the negotiating power around that as well. But like you said, when you're putting it in place, just like setting up your will or anything else that you put, just because you set it up in place like that doesn't mean it's the way that it has to stay. You need to make sure these things are kept updated, because if it's not, when something does go wrong, you might be in a completely different position and that's no longer any help to you. So it's almost a useless piece of paper. So we don't want that.
Yeah. So what happened in the shareholder agreement at this stage said essentially this is how we value business in terms of what's this. So which was a multiple of the business profit at the time. So when I came in, I knew that when I was buying in, this was the client's agreed upon to buying in. Yeah, obviously that's something which can be negotiated between the shareholder willing to sell, because they're obviously got an asset to sell. So they could either say, well, what an higher price or a lower price, but there was pretty much agreed upon. This is the valuation methodology. In the agreement also that explains that who you can sell to, under what conditions and all as such, so that you're not just selling shares off to your best mate because you want to.
So let's talk about that, because I think that's a good thing. So to sort of talk through a little bit more, what do you mean? So is it saying it has to be, a third party? What's the conditions that you had in?
Well, it's around about that particular third party and like the such, that if you can imagine like that, the 75% shareholder who's got the majority shareholdings and all the voting rights, and with this case, they want to get out. It wasn't a very rough place, and they just said, well, there's an external party, which is the third bidder, who we may not want to have, take our own. If there was no agreement in place, they could theoretically say, well, this person's offered me the most amount of money, or this business, they're now 75% shareholder of yours.
Yeah, okay. So it's very important that.
It's around that who has the first right of offer, as such, so that you're all clear. Because what it is, it's really the flow thread for saying this is the rules of business, how we interact with each other, how we go about our interactions with each other, what happens if there's a fallout, or there's one partner wants to get out due to retirement or injury or sickness. What if someone just wants a career change, the ones as such? Importantly, if one of us wants to voluntarily get out, the non-compete clause, that obviously that financial advisors run are pretty short in supply at the moment, and there has to be protection in place. If you get out, you just can't sort of open up next door in direct competition with the business, that you work for this time. So it's just a matter of the shareholder agreement pretty much saying this is the rule of how we do together as shareholders, essentially. If you want to buy in, how that's funded. So we had a step for funding methodology, essentially. If someone wants to get out through retirement, how that was to be done, how long the other business partners, how much notice period would they be given, how the other business partners would fund it and be able to pay for it, because it's not easy just to suddenly pull out $1 million puff out of your back pocket and take over someone else if they want to get out.
And if you're listening right now and going, I want to know more about all of that, we will cover all of that as we're going along. For now, we'll just give a bit of an overview of how it works. And after we go through this, we'll break each of those points down about what your options are and how that might look.
So what came down was that it was saying, this is the agreement. So it's almost like, welcome to being a shareholder of this business. Here's the agreement we've got so that you know the rules of how we engage with each other. Because not only are you dealing with this case, we went from 2 shareholders to 4, with all very controlled, you're also with their spouses as well, essentially.
Very good point. That can be fun.
What and often I often hear some people say, "Oh, we have a gentleman's agreement with it," and I think, well, you two might get on perfectly well, but how well do each of the spouses get on?
And how much influence are they having in the back end?
People are going to have on it, as such. So that was getting an understanding of what the agreement was, and what that really also did in going to the bank to borrow money, both myself to buy in, as well when we subsequently bought other businesses, having that robust shareholder agreement in place, and the second part, which is the vital insurances we had, made getting funding and financing to the bank much easier, and us getting a much more competitive rate, because they could say, yeah, this business has their shit together, essentially. They've got all these protection measures in place, all those events. So we as a lender, a big 4 bank, are more comfortable lending money to them. And obviously, the competitive market, we can get a better rate of borrowing than if we just gone in and said, we just want to borrow some money, and they're saying, well, where's your agreement? Where your protection strategies in place?
Very important. I like it. And at that time, so had you had much experience with these sorts of agreements? Who did you go to? What did that process look for you doing your due diligence?
Yeah. So what happened is initially, my experience with it was next to none, essentially, because it was the first business I actually bought into. I knew about them to an extent, but actually hadn't seen them in practice. And in the past, I'd sort of recommended strategies around it, but actually, this was my first time in actually being involved in as a business owner.
Yeah.
So part of that is when the 2 of us bought in, we then went to our business solicitor and said we now need to work on the new business agreement, essentially the shareholder agreement, because we've now got 4 business partners. There was still one of the business partners still had 55%, and then the other 3 of us had 15% holding it, essentially. As such. So we met with the solicitor and we worked with them, and we discussed what we'd like in the agreement, essentially. They gave feedback in terms of what could and what could not be done, essentially, or how to word it, and then brought back to the draft for it to review and for us to then to work on, essentially. So that was part of what you're saying with each of it, and how these pretty robust conversations is essentially saying, identifying all, I guess, events that could happen between a business partner, and saying, if this happens, what do we do? Or what's the rule of guidance around, essentially?
And did you see your accountant in this time as well? Like how, with the valuing of the business, was that something you agreed on with each other, or is that something that you sought advice from an accountant to come to, or what was that?
What we looked at was a appropriate business valuation based on various metrics available to it, essentially. So our methodology was essentially a multiple of the average profit over the last couple of years, because we said the businesses, which we sort of looked at, good sustainable businesses use its methodology, essentially.
Yep.
So it's a technical 7 times EBIT.
Yeah. And of course, you guys, finance backgrounds, you're pretty all over this. So for, most people out there, they probably seek advice from their accountant at this point as well. For you guys, it's probably If what we do.
It was it's our sort of bread and butter.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're going to do. We also then look at it saying, we want to sell to a third party. What would be the market rate for that? And our market rate around that.
Perfect.
So we didn't sort of involve our accountant at that stage, because there was something more that we wanted to as business partners, and I think we work with something together.
Yeah.
The part of that is essentially that there's, if you look at, apart from like a relationship breakdown in the business, actually, where two business partners will start to hate each other or what such, there are some critical events which can happen to business partners. So if we look at one or more of them could die, one or more of them could become totally and permanently disabled, one or more of them could suffer a serious medical condition and be pregnant, so get a heart attack, stroke. Or one or more of them could, through sickness or accident, be unable to work for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
As financial advisors, one of the things we sort of look at is protecting both individual businesses, and one of the mechanisms doing that is insurance. So if we look at the four events that can happen, is that the business agreed to fund insurance policies to cover each of those businesses, which would form part, each of those events, which would then form part of our basically sort of buy-sell agreement. So if you think about if one of our business partners died, if that meant obviously that says that if business partner has died away, that under the rule that it would have reverted the business partner's estate, essentially, if we really want to be in the States or someone.
Yeah. And this is like, if you've got a business where you're plumbing and you and your partner are both plumbers, and then they pass away and it goes to their estate, you're now in business with their wife, who could be an accountant, could also be handy in your business, but not too much help on the tools, I'd say. So this is what I was talking about, yeah?
Exactly right. So what happened in these situation is that we said that if the sickness or accident one of us couldn't work, we have an income protection policy, which the business fund. The business will fund our salary for 30 days, and then the income protection policy. So what that means, if I go down and can't work, business will pay my salaries for 30 days, and then the income protection, which is that then obviously the business would no longer have to pay my salary.
Yeah, and then they'd either have the money to go out and replace you in doing your role, or they would just hold over until you were back, depending on the circumstances. So,
or if I had a majority share, I could say, well, no, you'll pay my salary regardless. So, let's handle that financial liability to the insurance company.
yeah, absolutely. And this is probably the most clean-cut way to do it. I guess, some of the other ways you might do it is if you've got a hell of a lot of cash sitting in your business, maybe you fund it from cash. Like maybe you could get investors into the business, so you could bring in another partner to help with those. And these are obviously depending on what the circumstances are. Maybe somebody buys their shares, and obviously all of this is happening as well, which I think is why insurance, from my personal opinion, is a good option, because if you've lost one of your business partners, there's a pretty good chance, even if it's just illness, there's a pretty good chance that you're dealing with that loss as well. So you might not be in the headspace to go out and sort another partner or investor to buy into the business to replace their share. So the insurance gives them time to work through that as well. So,
and what it does done, every business is different, and that's why it's important to get advice, because when we do this about businesses, we say, well, if this was to happen, what would you like there? How's the best way we stop it? And like I said, some say, well, no, the business holds sufficient cash capital to be able to fund that. No, we'll be able to replace someone because the role of this person died. Still replaced. Other times say, no, we need to go get an insurance route.
Yeah. And you probably won't tell your partner that they're really easy to replace as well. You might need to word that out.
Exactly. If you do have a great business, essentially.
Yeah.
here that you are very hard to replace.
Yeah. Yeah.
That if you're running a business that's a niche business or something where your expertise and skill something is kicking goals, you just can't say, well, they're out of the business. Okay, well, we've got to.
It's all going to run the same. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And looking at and running your own business, no one works harder in your own business. That's
Then you do.
a business owner.
We all know that, don't we?
But when it's your business on the line and your passion, then you're going to be a far more greater asset to it than getting anyone in there who might be good at their job, but is really, collecting a paycheck.
Yeah.
And if they're there to build a stopgap thing, what's their future hold once the other business partner comes back?
Exactly. And I suppose another option as well is you could shut down the business, and maybe that's something that you do, and that would be something that you'd build into your shareholder agreement as well.
Potentially,
Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
It's just pretty much a bit of an idea of saying, let's identify all the possible events that could happen.
Yeah.
And then what do we do about it, and how do we manage that risk?
Yeah. Or maybe, and hopefully you guys have been running a successful business for so long that you're all absolutely loaded and you just front up the cash to buy out the partner. There's all these options. So, yes.
And that's exactly right. That when you get to the point where clients don't particularly like paying for insurance policies and loads of stuff that we have, but I see them vital and but if we got to a point where we didn't need to file this much and it frees up more additional cash flow for business to use elsewhere, then that's a good result. But at the moment, we have various assurances to affect all our people.
100%. And, talking about that in our Launch Your Biz Now course a week or two ago, we were doing business insurances and talking about the different business insurances, just basic stuff. And, a lot of the feedback was from people, it's insurances, it's so much money as a startup. But, I guess both of us have seen the results of when people don't have this cover in place, whether it's, this sort of stuff we're talking about here, where it's buy sells, or if it's just professional indemnity or public liability or income protection, just, any of it. It's horrible. And I just would hate for any of our listeners to be in that position. So that's why we want to make sure we're providing this information. So, you don't know until you know. And then once you know, you have to do better. So after listening to this, you've got to do better. So, all right, back to it. We'll stop sidetracking.
And we look at it is that one of the other insurances we have is more that kind of stuff like that. So essentially what that is, parent disablement or suffering serious medical or so if you die, become terminally ill, total parent disablement is that you can't ever work again, and critically what's being you suffer a serious medical condition. Cancer, heart attack, stroke, three. Each of those events occurring to someone in a business can be potentially catastrophic if the right measures are in place. So as part of our business when I joined is we all had essentially, and it's all part of our buy and sell agreement, we all had life insurance, total permanent disablement, and trauma cover, approximately equal to the value of the shareholding in our business. Now, we worked through our accountant to work out the best way that it was funded to minimise potential tax issues and like the such. But essentially the agreement was that if, thanks to myself as a shareholder, if I passed away, which is probably the most easiest to explain, if I passed away, my estate family got the insurance proceeds and my business partners got my company's shares. Then you'll consider it. So they got that. So I'm here for a buff, I'm dead, rather than the business now being, well, my business partners now being in business with my estate, essentially. And my mother being the executive, I really wouldn't want to be in business with my mother.
Sorry, Mum.
So if I died, the lump sum gets paid out. everyone's the family all up.
And just to cover off here, I think it's important just in case somebody's listening going, whoa, I have life insurance in my super. I have total permanent disability or income protection in their super. What you hold personally is completely different to this. So just because you're covered personally and that's covering your family and, looking after you as a personal person. Yeah, that'll do. This is looking after your business. So it's the value of your business shares and your business partners own this insurance. So that's why they're getting paid out the insurance. So I just want to make that really clear in case anyone's thinking, I've got that, I've sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is an agreement between the partner, essentially, introduced you. And part of that was, if one of the events happens, it's a compulsory exiting. So before I died, now that doesn't necessarily mean that if I died and there wasn't an agreement in place, then my estate wouldn't be a shareholder in the business. But with that agreed shareholder agreement in place, which then in the event of Patrick's death, and once the insurance proceeds are paid out to Patrick's estate, the remaining his shares in the company revert to other business holders. Now, other businesses I've worked with have different agreements, and that it's really about working out, saying, if it's look back on what would you want to have. There's no cookie cutter, cut and dry approach.
No, and there's no template, is it? Yeah, you work it out. Sit down, have a big, deep discussion, a bottle or two of wine, and see what you come up with.
Absolutely. Then if you look at the total permanent disablement and the sickness or accident, you can't ever work again. So in my case, if I got hit by a bus but wasn't able to ever work again, or got hit in the head and lost mental capacity or whatever which could that I got, again, without that agreement in place, I'm still in the business. And now the business partners are in business with my power of return.
And as well, you might not be at that sound mind. So, they could be forced to keep you in the business where you are no longer able to know what's in the best interest and all those, sorts of things. You might really want to be in the business and it's just not realistic. So
my business partners might say, this person's now a complete liability. We need to, they are a sound body and mind, essentially, but if we don't have, and yes, that we need to keep them in because we can't afford to buy them out.
Yeah, that's it.
But what with our agreement is that those proceeds are paid out. I receive the money plus my income protection to pay me my income till I'm 65, and the business partners then acquire my share.
So it's a win-win for everyone, isn't it? Like, there's no one that loses out when you've got this strategy in place.
I mean,
not obviously the person that's, disabled or whatever else. Sorry, but, it's...
I mean, insurance company pays out.
Insurance company. But hey...
No one's a big...
Wait a minute. It's fine.
I hope they're not a sponsor of your podcast.
Not anymore. No, not yet.
Then I guess the third one, which has, and I'll tell you a story about this. If basically one more business partner suffers a medical. So about 6 years ago, so each of us again holds former cover to the value of our shareholding.
Which is the cover that covers cancer, heart attack, stroke as your main sort of things, yeah?
About 45 serious conditions covered, and it's a benefit. So you don't have to die from it. You don't have to have any time off work, theoretically. But essentially, it's just you suffer a medical trauma to the life severity of the cause.
Yep. And here's a lump sum of cash. There you go.
So about 6 years ago, our majority shareholder had a sore shoulder. And we did more physio, did all the massage, and they still couldn't find. So they eventually looked and said, we think they've got the internal, essentially did the scans and ended up the melanoma on one of his shoulder blades, essentially. So obviously that's a pretty devastating diagnosis for someone in their early 50s.
Mm.
But fortunately, they'll call a cover, as well as income protection. So what happened was he went off, got treatment. We put a claim in, and he received the lump sum before the cover. He's out of business in total for 19 months. So he did various treatments, and thankfully that are successful. He's back in the business. I think Josh explained this later about how that occurred.
Mm.
Essentially what it did is it said, here's a lump sum of money, and with your income protection, here is your income being replaced. Now you can go off and focus on getting the best treatment available to it, and you don't have to worry about money or what's going on.
Yeah, and remembering now as well, this is a majority shareholder, like, one of the main business people. It's not, I know that each person has their roles and stuff, but, he'd built the business up originally, hadn't he? Yeah, so,
It's in 1990,
yeah,
and Brent felt, basically being the majority shareholder the whole period, and
Yeah.
sort of Brian's planning and succession planning, and sort of sold off parts that he's holding throughout the
yeah. So could you imagine this business that had been going for this long and one of the main people just, having to go at short notice as well? Like, I obviously knew you guys at this time, so I sort of saw how this happened, but it's all of that, amazing to have the insurance, but it's the emotional side. It's, what do we do? How do we do it? Like, what happens? Like, is he going to be okay? Like, it's so much more that goes into it. So just having that space to be able to deal with that as a business and personally, and for him to deal personally, as shitty as insurance premiums are, like, that's invaluable. Like, yeah.
But that's essentially we looked at it from our business saying, okay, here's the main base of the business, the main income earner.
Mm.
That's it. The business. But we are now able, they've been paid out. We picked up his share,
Yeah.
essentially, which has been distributed amongst the remaining shareholders, and then we're now receiving the profits from that.
So on the actual running, on the actual running of the business at the time, did you guys get anyone in to take over his role, or did you just split it between you?
We just split it between the three of us.
So that's big too.
Within our business, luckily, that with the four advisor business and sort of seeing how other businesses ran, where they sort of ran as a single contact business, where that person was the name and face of people dealt. Now we sort of made sure that the clients who we dealt with always knew of a second advisor that was sat in the meetings. For this purpose, there might have been that a client of mine is, wants to see me, and I'm off overseas. There's someone else in the business to go on. And likewise, it's when a business partner is taken out of business unexpectedly, that the other three of us knew of his client, knew the story, they knew who we were. And in our business, trust is so important. So we didn't lose a single client during that.
That is amazing and a testament to you guys. And also, side note, if you're wanting to build a saleable business, that's the way you do it, because you've then made your business not reliant on one person. Yeah. Like, anyone can step in and do that and have that trust. So, it could be this circumstance where something goes wrong, but it could also be the circumstance where you want to sell that business. It's now no longer dependent on you. So you can sell that. You can attribute a higher value to that business. So, we're back again.
So if you look at it from, myself, it's from a individual perspective, is one that I picked up all the company shares theoretically. There's terrible amount happening, but it didn't cost them because of the insurance in place. It also took the financial pressure off it, because essentially saying, even though the majority shareholder in business, your business writer is unavailable, we're not having to fund their salary, we're not having to distribute 55% of the profit to them. we're okay, and I'm not having to find out all this money to pay the bank for my loan. Financially, it was a great result for me and the other business owner, essentially.
Absolutely.
And we knew that we just concentrate on working in the business. The financial pressure was taken off us. And if you look at my business partner who was out of business, one is if you think about he could focus solely on getting better and getting the best treatment available and living the life.
And he did, didn't he? Like he went and sought amazing specialized treatment because he had that money and he had the means to do so. So I think, I don't know whether that was the reason he recovered, but it was definitely, something extra he was able to do, which was pretty special.
One of the things is because we do a lot of trauma cover for personal and life business, is we find whenever we have a client, the survival rates of the client is incredibly high. And we had a client saying, the doctor can't believe I've been diagnosed with this cancer that hard. I can't believe how well I'm doing. They can't put a reason to it. And I say the reason we know is the fact is because we know we don't have to worry about money. Because we know if this money's coming in, we can just concentrate on getting better and getting this treatment there. There's no need to worry about money or sacrifice. Have fundraisers.
Oh my God. That is so powerful, isn't it? Like, it's the same thing if you feel, if you're mentally stressed, then you wake up and your body's sore and, whatever you're feeling mentally comes out physically and vice versa. So if you're taking away that mental pressure for people, that's immense. And that's just such a special thing.
You look at when my business partner was telling me that go get a Melbourne to Patrick McCarron and Sarah Stow. And he'd be there with the regulars, essentially unfortunate, and he would then be talking and they'd say, and they wouldn't even doing later, and they'd, oh no, we need to go back to work. We can't afford to.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing as well. Like,
we don't have the money here, I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got bills to pay.
Yeah.
And thinking when you're in the fight to your life and then stressing about, particularly if you're the breadwinner for the family or is dependent on it. But then having to say, well, I've got this treatment to the normal condition. But then I don't have to worry about that because it's been funded and I can control where I spend money on. I don't have to worry about money and I can just concentrate on my wellness and my family's wellness. It just gives incredible results.
Gosh. And so we're about 3.5, or you're about 3 hours from there where you would be. So that's a time that he's going to have to spend without his family there, potentially, if you don't have the financial resources. It's just the whole family is put on edge. There's all of this extra stress. So he's been able to take time with his partner or whoever else it is and the rest of the family and have that support. So yeah, it's pretty powerful.
And if you look, the men and people, good business owners love it. They love what they do. They're passionate about it. Essentially. And I would imagine if I was in a similar plan, if I had enforced everything and hadn't had these connections in plans, and the thought of bringing my business to my work and business partners in my work and my clients in my work, because there hasn't been a collective agreement in place or been, they're under financial stress. To me, I would feel awful.
Yeah.
Giving you to saying, he can look after his it's here. The business is fine, it's running well. And fortunately, after 19 months, he was in great treatment and the likes and such, and a really positive mindset, and he was ready to come back into the.
Yeah, so this is a pretty cool thing, which I don't think people sort of think about when it comes to this. They're thinking just, it's done, dusted, but it's pretty special that you've seen this through this circumstance, because then what happens? What happens when you want to buy back in or want to come back into the business that you've been paid out of and, you're gone from?
So where it comes down to is part of his it's the agreement in place.
Mhm.
Now, you don't, you're not forced to tell your kids someone or blind and such. If you don't, they say. So here's that kind of business. Hey, look, I'd like to come back to the business. I'd like to buy some equity in the business because it's important to me that I'm not just an employee, I'm also a shareholder and, I've got my skin in the game.
Yeah, and this is his baby. Like, we're 20 odd years.
Yeah, and I love it. Essentially.
Mm.
So with the shareholder agreement, we said, okay, well, this is what the agreed upon. This is what the shareholder agreement says that the business is taking that.
And so he literally just brought in, like, as if someone off the street came in, it was the same price because he'd got paid out at that rate and just bang, back into it.
Yeah, pretty much that. We just looked at it and said, this is what the agreement is, essentially. This is what we think the business valued with the account joining. So this is the price of the dollars.
Hmm.
They used to say, look, rather than me working 5 days a week, I want to enjoy life a bit more, so I want to come back in.
I bet.
Work 4 days a week, essentially, as such. So with that agreement, then it just said, this is, you've been forced out through a catastrophic illness. Now you want to come back, and you come back under what term, essentially, as such. Now, that's sort of where the agreement that obviously that if you died, you can't be like coming back. It's like your religious voice.
Maybe to haunt you, but not back in a normal sense.
But yes, exactly. You're not getting back into the business, or if you're totally and very disabled, essentially saying that that's part of it.
Mm.
So if we look at fast forward 5 years, there was now profit because during that time we've taken on a business partner who's bought in under the shareholder agreement and life and such. And just in the last 12 months, one of my other business partners has suffered a serious illness. Unfortunately, they won't be able to come back to the business, but in their instance, they get income protection, income replacement cover, as well as a lump sum total settlement cover. Essentially. So if we look at it from their point, is that they're financially secure, they can go on with the rest of their life and live the life to the best of their ability, essentially. And as a business itself is then out of the business and we then absorb their shit as part of
Yeah.
the shareholder.
Yep. Business can keep operating, best of both worlds.
But still, from both a business wellness and the individual wellness, that taking that financial responsibility away from them and essentially transferring to the insurance company
Mm.
and they're in place is just invaluable.
Well, that's it, because the alternative is when they're sick and you guys are still there, and they're not able to work and you're still trying to do it. Could you imagine the resentment that you'd begin feeling when you're carrying that weight? You're still, supporting them because they still need to pay their bills and it doesn't take long before that would drain you and, turn it into a really bad event. So have you seen any circumstances where people haven't had partnership agreements in place and they haven't had this sort of cover? And maybe give a couple of examples you might have seen in your time about this going bad?
So when I first joined the financial service industry, I went for a business where there was one was about 20 years older than the other, essentially, and that there was no formal agreement between them, essentially, and that they had no insurances on it, essentially. So two things happened. And the older business partner wanted to get out, essentially, and they're like, "Hey, I'm out," and then started on amicable, and then due to basically no agreements or rules and engagement in place, it turned into World War III.
Mm.
So it dragged out for 18 months. There was incredible resentment. There was huge divorce. As such, on both parties, it was a huge mental strain on both of them because they would just have loggerheads at the one to touch. And then what should have been a nice sort of, okay, this person wants to move into retirement. Curve essentially, who
Hell.
Yep.
Yeah.
At that time, I was essentially an employee, and sort of say this and just did my best to basically make sure I looked after and I was here and keep everyone to start up. Then when you look at the other business owner, essentially, after all this happened and the elder partner exited the business, the new business, succeeding business owner did the whole share. It was all in there. They then went for a routine colonoscopy and found out they had
Holy crap. Well, literally, holy crap. Like,
holy crap. So, if you think about that, they were essentially based in the business, the whole majority shareholder. And in terms of starting, they have really and the one still in a business have felt like no. Now, if you look at it from my point of view, is I had to work bloody hard. That is going every off had to work bloody hard. Going, it was a huge stress on all this because they had no others in place with it. Essentially, that they eventually recovered. Now, I don't know if it was waited, but then they started suffering from mental health issues after that, which I think was more of a bit of a succession of the last few.
Well, I would think so. Like, that's an incredible amount of stress someone's under.
Break up and coming in, having a health scare,
and
then coming back, and then
picking up the pieces.
Picking up the pieces and saying, well, this is my baby.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about me, I was an employee there. So whilst I was incredibly loyal, and yet the fly to them, the worst that was going to happen to me was the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like here's my baby, here's my livelihood, and I owe the bank a shit ton of money as well. They're not going to say, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, you suffered this terrible series of events." What they were paying the loan.
Weirdly enough, they don't do that. Hey, like I don't get it. Weird, no.
But yeah, that all that stuff, and then it just led on to one thing after another. And about that time, that's when I went, okay, I need to, I was incredibly loyal to my clients, and I didn't want to leave in words. So when I moved elsewhere, I moved to somewhere where the client wanted to track me down and find me. Essentially, they could have started. And if you look, the only thing that I'd say with this business that did have in place was there was basically a non-compete clause, which said that for 6 months I couldn't contact any of my assistants.
Yeah.
So that was probably the one thing of the agreement that was in place was that I could go enjoy the competition and the next day pick up the phones and start reading my client.
Yeah.
It was like a 6-month non-compete clause.
And I just so powerful for you to experience both of those scenarios and see it play out well and play out not so well. And I think the thing is, nobody thinks it's going to go bad until it goes bad. Yeah. So, that they wouldn't have got into partnership together thinking things were going to go wrong. And they probably knew, they're financial planners. They know this is something they should do. They would have known that, and they would have put it on the back burner, and they might have had this gentleman's agreement, or they might have had something or they might not have even really talked about it. One person might have just thought something, somebody else thought something else, and just continued on with life until something goes wrong. And then, what starts as a little bit of a difference turns into a big difference. And it snowballs. It's so easy to do. And I think there'll be a lot of people listening to this that go, oh shit, I wasn't going to worry about this because I'm a startup business. We haven't even made money yet. Why would I be considering what happens when things go wrong? And I get that. But hopefully this is sort of made people consider this stuff, yeah? Like, it's,
And the other thing which to consider also, who are your key people in the business? And then, so,
yes, almost forgot about this. You're onto it.
so if in hindsight with experiences with justice affairs, is you can get basically covers called key. It's
Mhm.
a bit the same, which says that if a person suffers a death, disablement, or critical illness, there's a lump sum of money paid. Now, if it was a way structured and what purpose is not to avoid potential taxes and the like such, that's very important to get advice in place. But essentially, if you have a business where you might have someone who's the team who does all the revenue creation, essentially. So there might be someone who has a plumbing business, you have a plumber who goes out, does all the plumbing, then you have an office manager of your station. Now, if plumber goes down, you could have you could be the best office administration, best office manager going around, but if you don't know how to pick up a wrench,
You're not fixing the duddies.
you're not there. So having some protection on that key person can say, well, this is here to protect your revenue. So if they go down, that you can say, well, we can then, there's $150,000 into the business or whatever amount can put down, which could then help fund their replacement temporarily or give the business some breathing space to find what to do.
Yeah. So it's not so much it covers their income, it's a lump sum that gets paid out that you set the amount for.
Yeah. So the way I'm still looking at it is to say, this is more of a business covering an individual. Say, if the cost to replace me for a year in a business was going to be $200,000, essentially, or not $200,000, and if I went down, that money's in there that they could go out and try and find another advisor or take the money because there's going to be a loss in revenue.
Yeah. Awesome. So it's just that protection for the business.
Yeah.
And is there a certain point that a business needs to get to before they're able to apply for this? Like for startup businesses listening to this, would they need to prove revenue for a certain period, or what would that look like? When would this come into play?
Realistically, you can do it at any stage, essentially, where it comes down to the what levels of cover the insurance company will to itself. So what you by that is if you're a startup business and you say, okay, I'm going to protect myself for $20 million, since the insurance company would go, well, hang on a second, why are you insuring yourself for this much? Essentially. But usually what it is a table discussion saying, this is what the buyer business is looking, and then talking with an advisor and saying, okay, how should we structure things? And if we then establish saying, well, this amount of money or whatever we do, how much do we need? And then they're discussing with the insurance company and saying, this is what we want to do, this is what the purchases are, and seeing if the insurance companies are, because they're the one that they're aiming to take the risk on. And every insurance company will be frightened. But there's no cuddle dry cases. It's often having that discussion saying, well, what are we trying to achieve here? Okay, how do we go about it and what's the third party does?
Yeah. This is another sidebar, but I was just thinking while you're saying that. I can't remember who it is, but do you remember someone that had their butt insured? It was an actress that had her butt insured for like a ridiculous amount of money. Do you remember who it is? Oh, it's killing me.
Kim Kardashian?
Yes. Yes. Kim K's butt. And that's insured. So, when they're, and I actually don't know this, so I'm not leading you with this question. I literally just have no idea. When they're talking about that, do you reckon they're actually insuring a butt, or are they got a key person insurance on her that if, it's her butt that made her famous, and if something happened to her body and her butt, that would pay out? What do you reckon? I don't know.
Yeah, I always like that is how that would be underwritten. And I think we should have simple measurements every month. So all that She writes up in Kanye and then just goes on a chocolate thing.
God, if she could pump out kids and still have a enjoyable butt, she's doing a whole lot better than I am, that's for sure. Hats off to it. But no, it's very cool. And
Where you look at it,
yeah,
is obviously that my makeup.
Yep.
But that if something would happen that her butt doesn't happen to
Jiggle all the way it jiggled. No, I had to say a lot while we go, I think.
it's a different for her.
Yeah. So it's protecting against that loss of revenue.
Yeah. Look like I was just sure more about this. Have someone walk around making sure he's wearing kind of pairs for stopping damage is what they all. This is what is mine. Essentially, that's no different to a trained person or anyone.
Yeah.
Well, my hands are drawn.
Yeah.
I have to turn that. So if I get my hand off my hair, I could use a computer or type. I couldn't do my job. Well, for trading, I couldn't do their job. So that's what I'm insured for.
Yeah, and with your example before with your first business when things went wrong, they could have prevented that on so many levels, and they could have had key person of influence now, I'm thinking about key person insurance on you, and that would have been that next level protection as well again, because, imagine touch wood, and thank God it didn't happen, but if they went out and then it got to you and you were solely, the business was solely dependent on you and something happened to you, like, oh my God, like then it would have just, so, I guess you can only protect against so many what ifs, but if you sit down and sit with somebody, so sit with your financial planner and play this situation out. So, you'd organise an appointment with your business partners and a financial planner, maybe with your solicitor there too, or maybe separate, who knows, and sort of bat some of these ideas around, see what it comes up with.
Exactly right. And what I think the key thing that I've noticed now is, and where you see others, that they all get sort of got caught up in doing what they enjoy, what that, and it can be a difficult conversation and it can be a healthy process. And yeah, in our business, we've had some pretty robust conversations with that, but the communication is great because we're saying we know what is important, we know it's
you guys understand it. Yeah.
We can disagree all this here, but it helps us to get to where we want to get to. And then we know, okay, well, this is how it's all going to work. We know that all the play.
Yeah.
And we know if this event happens, this is what if this happened, this is that. If this happened, this is that. Obviously, you can't particularly reimagine all of it. So we're not particularly well covered in aliens coming in Vegas, but
I'm really worried about the zombies, let's be honest. That's my thing. I had the zombie apocalypse planned in my head for different situations.
Zombies that never pass the Fascia competition. They're
going to take over the business. You're okay.
They're going to take over the business. Yeah, we're not. Volleyball,
I'm very strong. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. So it's just about making that time to work to where we should get to the point. Now, can just say, okay, we've got the right people, we've got the right doctors, and say, okay, well, how do we to make it stronger and better?
Yeah.
And it's an evolving process, essentially, and we're about to take on a new business partner.
Well, that's exciting.
Basically, helping reward a long-term staff member who's been very loyal to us. If we sort of got in a position to sort of help them out with getting them involved, getting ownership in the business.
Oh my God, there's another episode just in that there and talking about that sort of stuff. So we might need to come back for round 2 to get into that, because I think that's something that's challenging as a business to start bringing people in and how to reward people and keeping employees engaged. And oh God, it could go on forever. But I think another thing with talking about, having those robust discussions is if you prefer, have those initial discussions together. But maybe it's a good thing to get someone like your financial planner involved in that discussion, so they can be that third party and, play out some scenarios for you and say, all right, well, if you want to do that, this is how this would look, and, talk through some of those situations. So you guys obviously are already all over that. You guys are seeing it every day. But for the normal person out there, you guys are sort of normal. Financial planners are a little bit special in some different ways. I don't know if it's all good ways, guys. We're just a little slightly crazy, but that's okay. But yeah, so yeah, jump in an appointment with your financial planner, talk about this stuff, and yeah, just nut it out a little bit and see what you come up with. But Pat, I honestly can't thank you enough for sharing what you've shared today. You've had a huge business journey, and it's just so amazing to get somebody on that has not only the knowledge in the area, but also the experience in when it works well, when it doesn't work well, and what can go wrong, and, just everything. So, awesome that you've been able to share that with us. And I just love any time I get to catch up and have a chat with you. So any excuse, and I've got a glass of wine in hand, and I'm actually surprised that you don't have a beer or wine in hand. So
Gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic. I thought it was a juice, and I was a bit worried about you for a bit there. So just so everyone knows, it is almost 10 o'clock at night now, so we're not doing this in the morning. Financial planners, again, you would never be sure. That's all good. But Pat, if people are looking to find you and want to reach out and talk about their businesses, their partnership agreements, or anything else, where can they find you? Where's the best place to go?
Best is to look us up, which is www.templetonadvicegroup.com.au, or you give the office a call, which is 0260 561 So we have 3 offices. So we're located in Wodonga, Wangaratta, and Benalla. But we service clients all around Australia.
Yeah, perfect.
You want to touch base and you have everything outside that area, we can always book up a Zoom meeting or Teams meeting.
And do you offer like a first appointment sort of discovery, like, call to sort of chat about things and see where it can go? Is that a complimentary thing, or is that what would that sort of look like to just get started and get an idea?
Well, actually, what we look at is ultimately we want to find out a little bit about you and what's important to you, what you're trying to do, and to get a bit of an idea of if we're going to be a good fit, if we can help you, and we can add that call. If it's something which we can't help you with, or we're not going to be a good fit, or whatever, essentially. So initially, the initial consultation is on us, so complimentary. We operate under a fixed program, essentially. So once we sort of know what we're going to be doing and helping you, and how much work's involved, we just quote a flat fee based on our estimated hours of work. What we find is that works best because with our clients, they know roughly, they know what they're going to be up for, and they know that if they pick up the phone and give you a call, they're not going to get an invoice because they know we're paying this out here, it's going to cost us X amount of dollars, essentially, that they know that's just done, and it's on ongoing. We have agreed thing. We'd encourage our client to pick up the phone and put in questions to the email, and that they're not going to be worried that they pick up the phone and they can sort of figure out what's going and thinking, okay, I want to get what's So actually where it is initial consultation is complimentary, and then once we sort of get the point where we can help, we just basically quote the fees and it's a time frame in terms of completing work for it.
Awesome. No, it's very cool. And hopefully everybody understands why this stuff is so important after today. I'm obviously a little bit biased with my background because I think this is extremely important and I have way too many insurances. But if something does go wrong, I know that I'm going to be covered, and then I'll be able to talk about that in this episode, touch wood, or in another episode about how that worked out well for me. But thank you so much for today, Pat. It was so wonderful to have you on the show, and I will put all of those links in the show note for everybody. So yeah, please reach out to Pat and say g'day and let him know that you heard him on the episode.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Pat.